conversation's super interesting, and I do think there are clearly connections between all of our mandates. I mean, the connections between the right to food and the right to a healthy environment are something that I'm currently exploring in a report for the UN General Assembly. I think there are clearly connections between environmental degradation and the conditions of extreme poverty that still afflict far too many people in this world. And I'm really delighted by the work that my colleague Olivier de Schutter is doing on exploring the parameters of a post-growth economy that alleviates poverty. I think that's just critically important work. And then, we also see that this COVID-19 pandemic, which is the coronavirus, is really one of many of these emerging infectious diseases that we're seeing because of human incursions into natural habitat, because of the illegal wildlife trade. And so the COVID-19 pandemic has affected, it's put more people into poverty. It's exacerbated the global hunger crisis. It's got roots in environmental degradation. And the COVID-19 pandemic has also increased violence against women. So I really think that, it's impossible to treat these subjects separately. We have to come up with integrated approaches. And I think that the key from my perspective is if we approach all of these issues from a human rights basis, if we take a rights-based approach to environmental degradation, a rights-based approach to the food system, a rights-based approach to poverty, then that's our greatest tool. That's our most likely path forward to success, is to really emphasize on this, on people's rights, because that's the way we can hold governments at all levels accountable for these universal rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fakhri, over to you.
Thank you. So just thank you to Heather and Joseph. I suspect I owe you guys an email. I think in my inbox, there's an outstanding email to you all. So please do send me this report. I'm really excited. I've been working a little bit with the Arab Network for Food Sovereignty as well. So I hope we can continue working and on that topic for sure. And I think what Joseph highlighted is how food can be used as a weapon. It can be used to dislocate people. It could be used in starvation and in some cases in genocide. And just to build on David's point about how things are interconnected, when I was listening to Ms. Clara Brugada, the mayor of Iztapalapa, it's so important in this issue of care, this care work. This is what I'm thinking of the crisis. What I keep framing things is it's a crisis of care. And what that means is attending to the needs of individuals in vulnerable situations, attending to the social capacity to care through institutions, and the need to attend to people who are care workers and caregivers, because they're essential for humanity's well-being. So in tackling the issue of feminicide, in tackling the issue of rape, in tackling the issue of violence against women, this is a core aspect that is sort of cuts across everyone's interests and everyone's needs. And so I was just listening, for example, how they supported women through public kitchens and through popular dining rooms and through laundry services. This is a model, I think, for everybody, that when you take care of people who take care of us, right? When cities take care of those that take care of us, everyone benefits. So in the pandemic, governments are trying to prioritize things, and I think prioritizing people who take care of others is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Mr. de Schutter, over to you.
Thank you. And again, thank you for involving me in this discussion. And I benefited a lot from the comments received so far, and including those just made by my colleagues, David Boyd and Mikhail Fakhri. I would like to make 2 points here. One is, it is of course extremely important that as special rapporteurs, we contribute to broadening the political imagination of governments. And I think the best way to do this is to learn from what civil society actors in various world regions and in various localities are doing. Very often they're more imaginative than technocrats operating in a much more top-down fashion with the recipes that are the most classic. So we must continuously learn, and it is important to hold governments accountable, but it's equally important to provide them with alternatives they may seek inspiration from. However, it's also important to avoid falling into the trap of romanticizing what civil society can do at the local level, working with people who are, food insecure or homeless or in poverty, thus allowing governments to take a step back and simply to encourage communities to take care of themselves. And there is this danger of the retreat of the state under the pretext of empowering civil society to come up with its own solutions and encouraging solidarity at the local level. And I think it's a major problem in areas such as food, housing, and even healthcare, that the humanitarian response from civil society is becoming a substitute for much bolder state action. So we must insist on this, and working with those actors is essential, but not to allow the state to be excused from doing nothing, but instead to hold the state accountable for those actors having to step in to make up for the deficiencies of the state. I think it's really important in the area that Michael Fakhri is working on. For example, the question of food aid comes up, but it's also true in my own mandate on poverty. The second shorter remark is that I worked in the past on food, and working on the right to food, I was deeply involved in discussions about how food production and consumption could contribute to a healthier planet and reduce the ecological footprint. And this is something that David Boyd and Michael Fakhri in their own ways are pursuing, of course, and I welcome this. I now work on poverty, and I realize that the actors working on poverty are much less concerned about the degradation of the environment, and very often, particularly the official actors, remain focused on the idea that we should increase wealth creation. And so I think it's important we work taking into account the complexity of funding solutions that do not only prioritize one single right, the one we are in charge of reporting about, but that we take a much broader picture, and that we avoid and that we don't over specialize, if you wish. And for me, it was extremely interesting to move from food to poverty, given that this concern we have for the sustainability of our lifestyles is one I'm now trying to bring into the poverty debate, but it's not easy, yet I think it's vital. So all this to say, I think it's very important that we work together, and this exchange we're having today is one example of how fruitful it can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Simonovic, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this rich discussion. And I would like to add what was already mentioned by other special rapporteurs present today here, that with respect to human rights-based approach, and in addition to this, also inclusion of gender perspective, we are now at the level of really focusing on implementation. And it is clear that all special rapporteurs are now able to include this gender perspective, but now we are not anymore on rhetorical level, just mentioning it. We are able to see what is really needed at the local level, at the level of cities, what should be done in order to apply those human rights frameworks that we have developed at the UN and regional levels. And it is extremely important now to go back to examples presented by Mayor of Mexico City, Iztapalapa, because she presented a set of activities that are aimed to prevent and to address gender-based violence against women and girls, including femicides, rapes, and so on. My next thematic report is going to address rape as a human rights violation, because we see around the world huge impunity with respect to rape. And we do have frameworks and norms that are not really applied. If we look at level of laws and practices and criminal justice systems, they are not yet there. They are not in line with human rights standards that we have at the international level. So I think that we are going into the direction of really focusing on implementation with respect to elimination of gender-based violence against women. That was a pandemic before the COVID-19 pandemic, but COVID-19 pandemic somehow interfered in a way that now gender-based violence against women is more visible, and all those pre-existing gaps and shortcomings are now more visible. But still, there are showing that we are not yet there in terms of activities that are needed. So I'm very glad that other special rapporteurs also mentioned gender-based violence against women. And I hope that with respect to with different human rights, we will be able to see what is needed at current stage from all of us to focus in direction of real application of those human rights norms that we have. And with respect to violence against women, there are concrete things with respect to what Mayor of city in Mexico said with respect to shelters, with respect to protection orders, helplines, all those steps that are needed in order to have at local level those preventive services that are really focusing on elimination of violence against women. And from my mandate's priority, I think that maybe all cities should really focus on analysis of cases of rapes and femicides, because from analysis of current cases, we are seeing all those shortcomings. We do not need to examine such cases only at the court level of treaty bodies and special procedures. They should be analyzed at the local level in order really to go into seeing what are those shortcomings and recommending measures that are needed at the local level. So I advocate femicide watch at all levels. Thank you.
Thank you.